The book of Ruth is, at this point, my favorite Old Testament book. I love this book. It is so cool. And the things that we can grasp from the book of Ruth. Now, you'll notice that I'm not going to be using my Bible a lot because I have the text printed in my little personal book of Ruth. That way I can make all kinds of other notes and scrawlings without having to worry about the ink bleeding through my Bible pages. Now, the book of Ruth, this is very important. It starts out, it says, in the days when the judges ruled. So everything that happens in the book of Ruth occurs during the times of the judges. And the book of Judges is probably my least favorite book of the entire Bible because it is so horrible and it is so dark. It starts off with the people, the initial elders and Joshua and his group of peers. They died off. And as soon as they died off, the people said, hey, wow, those guys are gone. Let's party. And we also know that they failed to drive out the inhabitants. They were supposed to do this because the inhabitants of the land would say, hey, you know what? You've left us here, so let's see how many ways we can tempt you into all manner of gross sin and idolatry. So Judges chapter 1 would cover this. And then you have RIOs. Okay, RIOs, that's your, what do you call that? An acronym, yeah, an acronym. Acronym for the day or acrostic, whichever works. The RIOs, repeated idolatry offense. So looking back in the book of Judges chapter 2, this is just horrible material. Because, none of us are ever like this. None of us are chiefs of sinners. None of us ever have to clean things out of our lives that shouldn't be there. After that whole generation had been gathered to their fathers, another generation grew up who neither knew the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals. They forsook the Lord, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of Egypt. The pagan people, they knew the stories better than the Israelites did, it seems. Because, they would say, hey, wait, their God is the God who took out the Egyptians. But the Israelites, they would forget this. So they followed, and they worshiped the various gods of the peoples around them. They provoked the Lord to, can you imagine working to provoke God to anger? What a foolish thing to do. They provoked the Lord to anger because they forsook him and served Baal and the Ashtoreths. In his anger against Israel, the Lord handed them over to raiders who plundered them. He sold them to their enemies all around, whom they were no longer able to resist. Why could they resist them? Because God was with them. God backs off. They can no longer resist. Whenever Israel went out to fight, the hand of the Lord was against them. Rather than the hand of the Lord being with them to give them victory, his hand was now against them, which means it was with the enemy, so that Israel might be defeated, because this is just as he had sworn to them. And they were really messed up. Okay, the text here says, in great distress. Then the Lord raised up judges who saved them out of the hands of these raiders. They would not listen to the judges, but quickly prostituted themselves to other gods and worshiped them. Unlike their fathers, they quickly turned from the way in which their fathers had walked, the way of obedience to the Lord's commands. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge for them, he was with the judge and saved them out of the hands of their enemies as long as the judge lived. For the Lord had compassion on them as they groaned under those who oppressed and afflicted them. But when the judge died, the people returned to ways even more corrupt than those of their fathers, following other gods and serving and worshiping them. They refused to give up their evil practices and stubborn ways. This was the RIOs, the repeated idolatry offenses. Various judges and leaders, some of them were okay. Some of them were morally very, very weak. Remember how Gideon, how horribly he ended. Samson. Here, a gifted guy to lead Israel out of all kinds of peril. And what does he do? I won't talk about it. You know what he does. More than once. And in his foolish pride and arrogance, he hooks up with Delilah. Can you imagine? You give Delilah these formulas for taking away his great strength, and then Delilah does these things to him while he's sleeping to take away his great strength, and then she says, wake up, the Philistines are upon you. I don't recall how many times this happens. It happened a lot. I mean, the funniest one was when she wove his hair into like some garment on a weaver's loom. It's like, wake up, the Philistines are upon you. And he shakes that out of his hair, and just so much foolishness. Some of these judges were very morally weak. So you have a complete moral and spiritual decline. If you haven't read this recently, please read through Judges 17 through 21. I don't want to take time to go into this horrible text today, but it's just really bad, evil, and gross. I mean, gross. Because the people would not follow the Lord. There is no common basis for morality. Everyone has their own moral code, their own moral truth. Everybody did what was right in their own eyes. It's kind of where we are now as a society. How dare you tell me that my lifestyle, the things that I'm doing, how dare you tell me that it is sinful? Who do you think you are? God says don't judge, and yet you're judging, you're just as bad as I am. Yeah. At some point, we'll have to go into the context when Jesus says don't judge, okay, lest you be judged. And also if you judge yourself, that's the best thing to do. But, so the society that we live in, and I think I've shared this before. I was in a meeting once for the school I worked for. And in this meeting, there were some people, and they did a presentation, and they cited all these statistics and said, and so from these statistics, here are our conclusions of what's happening. And our statistician guy, his name is Matt, raises his hand, he stands up, and he says, from the data that you have submitted, the statistics, you can't draw any of the conclusions that you're drawing from this. So within the first 10 to 15 minutes, Matt destroys everything that they're presenting because it's hogwash. It's statistically woefully inadequate, and the presenter simply said, "Thank you for your truth," and moved on. So she was saying, you bring all these rational facts to me that are foolishness, but you have your truth, I have mine, and mine's going to win the day because I'm behind the microphone. This is where we're at. So Ruth, real brief outline. Chapter 1, verses 1 through 10, describes the complete personal disaster that was going on. It was going on in the land, but also affecting Ruth and Naomi at this point. So then chapter 1, verses 11 through 22, Naomi goes back ruined. Her life is just destroyed. She goes back with Ruth, who's really cool because Ruth decides to stick with her, but we'll get to that. Chapter 2, a chance encounter with Boaz. Chapter 3, a redemptive scheme. Now, I don't mean scheme in the way of scheme. It's a scheme. It's a plan. You're trying to work some things out. My mother, she's not on yet, is she? Oh, good. Oh, hi, Tabitha. She's on. Tabitha, it's so good to have you with us. My father used to call me a finagler. Anybody been called a finagler? Anybody? You right? No? Okay. All right. Okay. Finagler. And what that means is I'm always trying to figure out a way around something. So no is simply a delaying tactic. But being a finagler helps you to fix things because you don't give up on stuff. There's a way. I got to be able to find a way through this. I have finagled my way into having now a really cool Clavinova digital keyboard. It's really cool. Didn't work. It was up at camp. It was broken. I fixed it. Don't tell them. They might want it back, Aaliyah. Okay, no, you can tell them. That's fine. If they want it back, I'll take it back to them. But and so I took it home. I thought, I bet you I can figure this out. Now, my knowledge of electronics is not very good. Does anybody besides David and Scott know what a rectifier does? I got to learn what rectifiers do, and so that it was really cool. I got to do a lot of soldering and stuff. I figured it out because I guess I kind of finagled my way through it, and I think I fixed it. We'll find out over time. Sure, you're laughing like you're a skeptic over there. It's like you never know. Sometimes you fix something and then you find out, I fixed something that wasn't broken. And this ends then with a chapter 4, a joyful redemption. Okay, chapter 1. In those days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. Now, why was there a famine in the land? Because God brought the famine because the people were being wicked. There was a famine in the land. A man of Bethlehem. Oh, what a fascinating town. Nice chance mention of that, so to speak. A man of Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the country of Moab. He and his wife had 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife, Naomi, and the names of the 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem and Judah. They went into the country of Moab and remained there because it was a famine, and so they went to try to survive. But Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. These took Moabite wives, which really they kind of weren't supposed to do. Took Moabite wives. The name of one was Orpah, and the name of the other was Ruth. They lived there about 10 years, and both Mahlon and Chilion died. So the woman was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Within this culture, that's a disaster. Okay, the whole makeup. A woman trying to support herself on her own, it did not work out. And then there's the 2 daughters-in-law. Verse 6, then she arose with her daughters-in-law to return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the fields of Moab that the Lord had visited his people and had given them food. So if he's given them food, that means they're probably repenting. Okay, and so the spiritual situation is probably better there. So she set out from the place where she was with her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, Go, each of you return to her mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you may find rest, each of you in the house of her husband. So maybe you can get remarried and have a good life. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. They said to her, No, we will return with you to your people. But Naomi said, Turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Have I yet sons in my womb that they may become your husbands? Turn back, my daughters. Go your way. I am too old to have a husband. If I should say I have hope, even if I should have a husband this night and should bear sons, would you therefore wait until they were grown? Would you therefore refrain from marrying until the sons were grown? No, my daughters, for it is exceedingly bitter for me. For it is exceedingly bitter to me for your sake that the hand of the Lord has gone out against me. The hand of the Lord gone out against her. Is that really true, do you think? Did the hand of the Lord go out against Naomi? Good question. I don't have an answer for it. However, we'll get to that. I don't think the Lord's hand had really gone out against her. Sometimes the circumstances of life are incredibly hard and difficult. This does not mean that God is not with us. Think of Job and the horrible things that happened to Job. Had God abandoned him? No, it's just the opposite. Orpah decides to stay in Moab, but Ruth will not leave Naomi. Now, here's what she says in verse 15. Naomi said to Ruth, Your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Very important. To her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. But Ruth said, Do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people and your God my God. This seems like a conversion experience that she has. I think it is a conversion experience. Verse 17, Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. So she turns her back on her people, her upbringing, and she's going to go back with Naomi. She's going to become assimilated into the people of Israel. May the Lord so do to me, and more also, if anything but death parts me from you. And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more. So the 2 of them went on their way until they came to Bethlehem. When they came to Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the women said, Is this Naomi? Now she had been gone for a number of years. She said to them, Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. Mara means bitterness. Naomi means pleasure, happiness. For the Lord Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me? So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the country of Moab. They came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest. Now, Naomi and Ruth are impoverished. It was a cool thing that God had built in for poor people into the Jewish culture. So let's say, for example, we have people, and they're doing this by hand, harvesting the bean field over here. You would not harvest to the edge of the fields. So you'd leave a band over there, maybe, a couple of feet, a meter, I don't know how much, but you would not harvest directly to the edge because this was a provision for the poor people. And when you harvested, you didn't go over your field twice. You just got one chance to go through because, if something wasn't quite ripe enough, you left it. The poor people would be able to get that. So, chapter 2, Naomi had a relative of her husband's, a worthy man of the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. Worthy is the idea of power and valor. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me go into the field and glean among the ears of corn, ears of grain after him in whose sight I shall find favor. And she said to her, go, my daughter. So she set out and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened, feel free to mark out that word in your text, just happened by chance to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the clan of Elimelech. Now, was Naomi forgotten? No. It just happened. Yeah, Naomi's back there. Naomi's not forgotten. Okay. It just so happened, which is a really neat, subtle way of saying God superintended this so Naomi got to the right field of Boaz. As it turned out. Now, Boaz is a great man, and he arrives just as Ruth begins to scavenge, and that's what she's doing, and he protects her. See what he does. He asks about Ruth, and he gets the reply from the servant who was in charge of the reapers. She is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. She said, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves after the reapers. So she came and she continued from early morning until now, except for a short rest. So she's working really hard. She just takes a short break, from the reaping, from the harvesting that she's doing. Ruth has a reputation. Ruth, the story of what she has done for Naomi, how she would not leave Naomi and had committed her life to Naomi, everybody knew about this. She had a good reputation. So Boaz said to Ruth, now listen, my daughter, and Boaz, just using very affectionate, kindly language. Now listen, my daughter, do not go glean in the field of another or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. He's a protector. Let your eyes be on the field that they are reaping and go after them. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink what the young men have drawn. Then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, why have I found favor in your eyes that you should take notice of me? I'm a foreigner. You know what you're supposed to do with foreigners? Ew, like that whole Samaritan thing. You just, you stay away from them. Boaz answered her, all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and mother and your native land and came to a people that you did not know before. The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward will be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel. This is important, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. Now remember that, under whose wings you've come to take refuge. Ruth's reputation, continued early morning. She's hardworking, so all you've done for your mother-in-law, we all know about this. We know that you are a woman of character. In fact, Boaz uses the term for her later that she is a woman of valor and of power, the same term that was used to describe Boaz. So, let's see, where are we at here? Oh, yeah. It's a matter of chance. Yeah, not really. Continuing on in the text. Jump down to verse 17, or verse 14. At the mealtime, Boaz said to her, come here and eat some bread, dip your morsel in the wine. She sat down beside the reapers, and he passed to her roasted grain. She ate until she was satisfied. She had some left over. The fact that she ate until she was satisfied and had some left over, what does that tell you about her character? Okay, she's not greedy. She's not a glutton. She has great character. When she rose to glean, Boaz, I love this. Boaz is such a great guy, such a man of valor. Boaz instructed his young men, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. Also pull out some from the bundles and leave for her on the ground to glean, and do not rebuke her. So in other words, leave stuff just for her to pick up, because she's a great gal, taking great care of Naomi, and they're related somehow through marriage. Verse 17, she gleaned in the field until evening. She beat out what she had gleaned. It was about an ephah, about I think it's 2/5 of a bushel of barley, 5.5 gallons by volume. That's a lot of work. She took up and went to the city. Her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. She also brought out and gave her the food she had left over from being satisfied. And her mother-in-law said to her, where did you glean today? And where have you worked? Blessed be the man who took notice of you. So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said, the man's name with whom I worked today is Boaz. Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, may he be blessed by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead. Naomi also said to her, the man is a close relative of ours, one of our redeemers, just by chance. Ruth the Moabite said, besides, he said to me, you shall keep close to my young men. So again, Boaz is protecting her. Chapter 3. This is strange. I would never tell one of my daughters to seek out a husband in this way, but it was the culture. Okay, it was the time. Then Naomi said to her mother-in-law, my daughter, should I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you? Is not Boaz our relative, with whose young women you were? See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Wash, therefore, and anoint yourself, get really fragrant. Put on your cloak and go down to the threshing floor, but do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. I think we can assume that he had been drinking. When he lies down, observe the place where he lies, then go uncover his feet and lie down. Then he will tell you what to do. She replied, all that you say I will do. So she goes down to the threshing floor, did what her mother-in-law said. Boaz had eaten and drunk, his heart was merry. He went to lie down at the, make sure I think I turned one page too many here. Yeah, at the end of the heap of grain, she came and softly uncovered his feet and lay down. Now, when you sleep at night, when it's a bit chilly out, you like to have your feet covered because your feet get really cold if they're not covered. So I thought about using an example here. I decided not to. But imagine that, okay, I'm laying down over here, and I'm covered up. I got my feet covered because who wants cold Tootsies at night? I'm all covered up, so I'm nice and toasty. And my feet become uncovered. Now, Ruth is laying at his feet. If I want to recover my feet, I'm going to be covering Ruth. Does that make sense? Okay. So Ruth is there, uncovers the feet. If he's going to recover the feet, he's going to cover Ruth. So he wakes up. He sees a woman laying at his feet. Who are you? And she answered, I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings or spread the corner of your garment. Kind of the same thing within the cultural context. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer. Now we go back to chapter 2, verse 12. Boaz says, the Lord repay you for what you have done. A full reward will be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. And what happens? The wings of Boaz are now extended to Ruth. And he said, may you be blessed, Boaz said, may you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. Again, the affectionate term. This is not creepy, it's within the culture. Okay? You have made this last kindness a greater than the first, in which you have not gone after young men, whether rich or poor. Now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do all that you ask for all my fellow townsmen. Know that you are a worthy, a woman of valor. And now it is true that I am a redeemer, yet there is a redeemer nearer than I. All right, let me make sure I go this. Yep, okay, yeah. Ruth has got to trust his character, got to trust his valor. Kinsman redeemer. A kinsman redeemer was a close relative responsible for restoring family property, paying off debts, avenging a slain relative, marrying a childless widow to preserve the family line. The Hebrew term for this is goel, which signifies a protector and a redeemer. So think of this as a person within a family structure who is the kindly thug, so to speak, because he would be the person who would avenge a slain relative. But also, if you were down on your luck, so to speak, and you needed help, he would be the one who would make sure that you would get the help that you need. So this is the kinsman redeemer idea. Now it is true, I am a redeemer, yet there's a redeemer nearer than I. Remain tonight, and in the morning, if he will redeem you, good, let him do it. But if he is not willing to redeem you, then as the Lord lives, I will redeem you. Lie down until the morning. So she lay at his feet until the morning, but arose before one could recognize another. You don't want people saying nasty things. And he said, let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. And he said, bring out the garment you were wearing and hold it out. So she held it out, and he poured out 6 measures of barley. I'm not sure how much that is, but it's quite a bit. Bring the garment you're wearing. She held it out. He pours in the barley, puts it on her. Then she goes to the city, and her mother-in-law is so excited. Naomi thinks, this is great. So then we have to see how the story finishes. Chapter 4. There's a joyful redemption. So there is a kinsman redeemer who is closer than Boaz, and they're all meeting at the gate where all the important people would meet. And he says, there's this property that Elimelech owned, and he's not here. So redeemer number 1, you're in line to redeem this. And he says, yeah, I'll redeem this. This is fine. And then Boaz says, also with the property, you have to marry Ruth the Moabitess, the widow. And he's like, that would really complicate my life. Boaz, you go ahead and you be the redeemer. Now, it was the custom in former times of Israel. So to seal this deal, the guy would take off they would trade sandals. Okay, that's where you've walked. They didn't have contracts. So it's like, how do you know you own the property? I've got this guy's shoe. That proves it. It was the culture. I'm sure they would laugh at some of the things that we do. So Ruth the Moabitess is pretty excited. Boaz is pretty excited. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. Now the women said to Naomi, blessed be the Lord who has not left you this day without a redeemer. May his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you as restorer of life and the nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more than you than 7 sons. What a huge statement that would be within this culture. More to you than 7 sons has given birth to him. Then Naomi, grandma. Can't imagine any grandma doing this. Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse. And the women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, a son has been born to Naomi. They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. And he ends up in the line of David, hence in the line of Christ. So Ruth, the Moabitess, ends up in the line of Christ. Mara, remember Naomi says, don't call me Naomi anymore, call me Mara. Now Mara goes back to being Naomi because she's got a grandson and she gets to babysit him all the time. She's so excited. This is great. Naomi, Ruth, and Boaz are all in the lineage of Christ. So, the Judges, time of incredible evil and chaos. This judge does a good thing for a while, then this back and forth, you get conquered, you get freed, conquered. Terrible time of chaos. In the middle of the chaos, and I love how this book starts. In the days when the judges ruled. So when all this chaos, all this junk was going on, God's got something going on that nobody would have expected in a million years. In the middle of chaos, God's got something that he's working out, which is better than what we could have expected. Now, this does not imply that life will be pleasant, but we have this understanding and hope that God is working in the chaos of life. I mean, all of us, we've got things in our lives, maybe the chaos is taking a bit of a break right now, but maybe at times you can look back and you can say, God, this was chaotic. I was wondering where you were. In the time of chaos, God's working stuff out just like he's working stuff out when stuff is not chaotic. The rulers, they think it's all about them. They're the guys who are controlling stuff. Remember when Stephen was stoned, all the Sanhedrin, they thought, this was great. We're going to kill this guy. And in the middle of that moment of chaos, what is God doing? God's getting through to Saul of Tarsus. Becomes Paul, a great proclaimer of the faith. Caesar Augustus. Remember that great guy, ruled the world. What a Caesar he was. Built all kinds of stuff. And then he puts out this taxation, which makes people at various times move all over the place from place A to place B. What is Augustus? He's a pawn. So, and I don't think God would have said it quite like this, but, I need to get Mary and Joseph to Bethlehem. What's a good, a taxation. Pawns. Nebuchadnezzar. He thought he was in charge of everything. He looked around and said, this is my place. And what does God do with him? He inflicts personal chaos about him, and he's eating grass like an ox until he is restored by God. Chaos. God is working in the chaos. So the main application for us to take comfort in times of chaos in our lives, in the midst of moral and spiritual anarchy, kind of sounds like Western culture. God is still at work for his redemptive purpose. What is God working? I don't know. I'm waiting for it. When stuff gets incredibly crazy and dumb and silly, God's got something he's working out in the meantime. I don't know exactly what it is yet. But, I look at some of this, I look at some of that. I'm reading of some revival movements on Christian campuses. See, Christians, we get revivals, okay? Because the pagans who don't know Jesus yet, they just get saved. We get revived. We get those dry bones of Ezekiel, get revived and reconnected. If our nation is in chaos, God's got something going on. If my life or your life is chaotic, God's got something going on. As Bill would say, we got to learn to trust him. Because God's got something going on, just like Bill has got this next hymn going on.